Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's BullCharts User Group webinar. And don't forget, nothing tonight is advice of any sort. It's for your information only. Here's the agenda that I put together for last week's Melbourne meeting and to use as a guide for tonight. We are celebrating 17 years of the user group. The first informal get-together of BullCharts users that kicked off the user group was in August of 2006 at the Box Hill RSL. Last week we did have some birthday cakes to celebrate and spent a few minutes of frivolity. What's the word? Frivolity for everyone's amusement. We then had a discussion about trend spotting and BullChart scans, and I do have a couple of slides to help introduce that session, but it's price charts like this one of AGL that really get us enthused about things like this. It's trends where a stock like AGL went up 64% in about 18 weeks. Now, annualize that figure and 64% becomes more than twice that, which is quite good. So imagine if we could spot these sorts of things very early on, and maybe some of you can. Maybe you've got the right tools or the right scans or the right whatever to spot them and hop on board the trend. So I put together just half a dozen slides to help us guide last week's discussion. So, and I called it trend trading and moving averages. And what I've said in the first slide here is that many BullCharts users, and in fact many traders and investors, are actually trend traders. Now, I've said that because we've done a straw poll, a show of hands in the Melbourne group a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, and Peter Olberg, I think from memory, did the same straw poll in the Sydney chapter of the OTAA about 3 or 4 years ago. And the poll basically was, put your hand up if you think you're a trend trader. That is, you like looking for a trend and joining the trend and staying with the trend till it finishes. And we were all surprised that roughly 80% of all of the people in the room admitted to being trend traders, at least 80%, which is quite interesting because it means that the other trading styles and methods and strategies that fit into other categories are only followed by maybe 20% of those ATO members who are in the room and our BullCharts users who were in our room in Melbourne when we did the poll. But based on that, I think it's very fair to say that many BullCharts users, and in fact many traders and investors, are actually trend traders. So I think that we're catering to the masses by talking about trend trading and trying to identify a trend like this one in AGL and how we could have spotted that earlier. And as David said a moment ago, how early in that trend could we have found it? In this session, I'm happy for us all to talk about a definition for trending. I'm just going to turn on my drawing tool. Here we go. I'm keen to talk about a definition for trending. Now we know that Dow theory says it's higher highs and higher lows. But in theory, maybe they're hard to spot using something like BullCharts scanning software. But having found some sort of definition for trending, how can we find trending securities using a BullChart scan? Now, these days I'm using the word securities instead of stocks because there are so many ETFs in the market and other things that are technically not stocks. And the ASX organisation and other people talk about all of those things in the market collectively as securities, not just stocks. But how can we find the trending ones using a BullChart scan? I want to have a look at that question and open it up for discussion. For most of this discussion, we will probably focus on discussing moving averages, which moving average should we use, which type, which time period, time frame is better than any other, and how to create the bull chart scan to search for trending conditions. And don't forget, there's no advice in any of this, but regardless of what anybody in the room, virtual room says, there's no advice. So what's our definition for trending, uptrending? Here's that chart of AGL again. On the left here is exactly the same chart, but a simple line version, not a candlestick version. And in this form, it's easier to pick the higher highs or the higher peaks and the higher troughs and declare that that is an uptrend. Now, that's a weekly chart. If we switch to daily, we might find the noise gives us a lot more peaks and a lot more troughs, so that we could maybe identify the trend earlier. Another way to call this an uptrend is to look at moving averages. And on this chart, I've got two moving averages drawn there. Because this is a weekly chart, one of them is probably a 30-week moving average. I can't remember what the other one is when I did that, but we can explore those shortly. So let's assume for this exercise, we'll look at moving averages, but should we use simple, exponential, or weighted? And does it matter much? And which time period is most useful or more useful, daily, weekly, or monthly? And at this stage, I'm happy to open up for questions. Either put things in a chat box if you want, or open your microphone and tell us what you think. And I don't think that'll cause any problems. So feel free to provide some input. Anyone there?
Yeah, I'll put my 2 bobs worth in.
Yes, Kevin.
For me to determine a trend or trending stock, I usually use the weekly. As you say, it takes a lot of the noise out. And I use the 34-period EMA. And if it's closed 2 weeks running above that, what goes into my universe of stocks to look closer at.
Use a 34-period EMA on a weekly.
Yeah, 2 weeks, 2 consecutive weeks, closing above that.
Okay, 2 consecutive weeks closing above it. How do you find that in terms of reliability?
It's not perfect, but it gets the bulk of it out. Potentials also gives you a early in to when a stock is starting to turn. Especially if it's going to, in a lot of cases, if it's done a big down run, you get a double bottom, so you'll you'll find the first bottom, and you can watch it for a bit before you enter.
So, because you're using weekly data and looking at a 34-period moving average and 2 consecutive weeks closing above, I'm guessing that a lot of the noise is filtered out.
Yeah, certainly, especially in our market's so choppy. Yes, looking for a confident trend or start of a trend.
Yep. Okay.
So you can monitor it and fine-tune your entry on the daily.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sounds good. Thanks, Kevin. Anyone else?
Robert, David here.
Yes, David.
The AGL one was an interesting one because it was a very strong trend, and I kept looking at it and thinking, it's starting to move, but it's been in the doldrums. I mean, it came down from, what, $25 down to about 5 or 6, and I knew there had to be a bottom somewhere, but a couple of things that I didn't pick it up till it was around $8. That was when I first said, this is starting to move, and yeah, if you can bring it up. And a couple of scans that I use, I scan for stocks making on a daily basis. I scan them for making a new 50-day high. That's probably what so many weeks. Yeah. And it really wasn't. And I use a Donchian Channel. I just put a Donchian Channel upper channel on it with a 50 on a daily chart, and it shows me when it's got above that 50. And that's when I picked it up, and I thought, and then I started looking below it, and I noticed that there were a couple of big white candles that I think you can see on that screen there. Those two there, and that sort of alerted to me. I really should have been looking for that. And then I said to myself, how else could I have picked it up a bit earlier? And probably of all the indicators, probably a Bollinger Band was one that would have alerted me a bit earlier. But having said that, I probably wouldn't have made the trade until it had got to a 50-day high. And so if I don't know whether you can stick a Bollinger Band on that AGL chart or not.
Yep.
And it really does highlight. Yeah, it's starting to move. Yeah, it's been in that lower section there with the first big white candle, but then it started to move at about $7.50, and I got in around $8. I'm now out of that trade. I decided that it once it dropped a couple of back about a week or 10 days ago, I decided that I'd take my profit and move on. So yeah. With those two black candles there, where I exited, it was below the 20-period moving average, and I decided it was time to go looking elsewhere. So, but it was an interesting trade because it really did show that once it got momentum, it was very strong, and it followed that up a Bollinger Band quite strongly. So that's probably my comments. Yeah, because I thought, how could I have missed that? And I don't think I did miss it, but you just need confirmation.
Thank you. I think this looks like a classic example of a breakout, because keen chart watchers who might have been watching this stock might have put a resistance line in at maybe the top of these candles and said, it's struggling to get above these two white candles here, which is about $7.15, roughly, $7.14. So, and I'll take away the moving averages on volume, that's distracting. So keen chart watchers who were watching this stock might have seen the volumes drop off in this period, and then this big white candle here, which didn't get to that level, was still low volume. There was big volume the day before for some reason. Now, that big volume day might have alerted some people. That's more than twice the volume of each day in the previous 2 or 3 weeks. So that's a volume spike that I think some people, from what I've heard, would have picked up on. Then there was that one candle there that broke out above that level, still not higher than earlier, but at least higher than that 5-6 week range. And that volume there is a little bit higher too than all recent volumes, about twice as much. So I'm guessing some people, depending on their strategies, if they had the right one, might have spotted this breakout here below 750 and been tempted to get in at about 750. That's what I'm guessing.
That's a good analysis. Yep, that's well done. Yep.
Now, one thing we can do in bull charts every day or week or whatever is run a scan for the highest high in recent days. And that sort of scan over this period in March might have given us a tip-off of that candle, because that's the highest high in at least the last 3 or 4 weeks. The highest daily close or even the highest high. So that could have been a tip-off for the people using that scan. The other scan that's already in bull chart somewhere is a volume spike, and it's possible that spike the day before would have picked that up. So that's one way to look at it. Let's switch across to a weekly chart and put on what Kevin was saying about 34 period EMA. I've got MA up here. 34 EMA on the price. Oh, now we're talking about this period in here. And that ellipse that I put in before, let's go back to the daily and remind ourselves why I put that ellipse in there. Because there were two big candles on the daily chart. Flick back to weekly. And those two candles are absorbed into this weekly. So we can see here this EMA, 34 period EMA, I'll change the color. Color to red, make it thicker so it sticks out. Yeah, that'll do. And up here it says moving average based on close price, exponential 34. So that 34 period EMA was falling throughout this period and turned up just there, and the price jumped above it and closed above it. So Kevin's saying two closes above would have been this one at about $8.34. And that would have given some good profit riding that trend. Let's go from one top of this candle up to maybe this one. So that's 44% over 15 weeks. If we had been late getting out, still 37% over 17 weeks. Kevin or David, have you got any comments to add to that one?
Just to reference those two candles that Dave was talking about, yes, it would have missed that initial start, certainly. But yeah, we just fortunate with that particular stock, it could do a good run for that period of time. Yeah, it would have been a possible entry a few days later. But it's actually it ran quite strongly. So yeah, getting in was, if you're going to wait for a pullback, could be waiting for a while.
Yes.
Robert, can you go back to a daily chart?
Yep.
And put an upper Donchian channel with a 20 EMA or a 50 EMA, or sorry, SMA, whatever. We just want the upper. I don't want the middle or the lower. I just want
your version of the Donchian, or the other one?
My version. Yeah, my version. Yeah.
20 periods.
Yeah. Go next.
Put it on the price.
And you got to look at the parameters.
Yep.
And the style.
Yep.
And we just want the upper. We don't want any fill. We just want the upper. Top. Yeah, that's it. Put OK.
Awful colour.
Yeah, I'd go for black or yeah. You can't see that. Yeah, I'd go for a. That's a bit ordinary, yeah. We need a more distinguishing colour.
I've just right-clicked. I'm waiting for the drop-down menu.
Oh, righto.
My windows must be a bit bloated. First time I do a drop-down in a session. So let's change the colour. Oh, that wasn't what we saw before, or was it blue?
No, blue, yeah. And I changed it to 50. Change the parameter to 50. Just go to 50, right?
Not 20.
And that's really saying a 50-day, right? So now you have a look at that, righto. So that would have got you in at around $8. So that's saying that. Yeah.
And here you reckon.
Yeah. Well, it's made a new 50-day high. Really, that's what it's saying. You don't have to use Donchian Channel. I just use it because it's convenient. There is another indicator that'll allow you to do it, but I just can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
May I interrupt?
Yes, go ahead, Peter.
The other indicator might be the Wilson initial high that's in BullCharts.
Just before we do, I want to dwell for a moment on moving averages, because in the notes, minutes from last week's meeting, I noted that a couple of people at the meeting both said independently that they use weighted moving average. So I'm looking at what Kevin's got here at 34 period on the weekly, and I'm wondering if a weighted moving average might have done anything better. So let's go to moving average. I'll just put one of those on, and then Peter, we can pick up your comment. Where's moving average gone? Moving average. Let's pick weighted. 34. Keep it the same. Next, price, merge, parameters. And let's change the style to be green and dotted and thicker. So that makes a tiny difference. Not much at all. All right, that's interesting. Peter, what were you saying? Insert a what? A Wilson?
we were talking a Wilson initial high indicator. It's one of the custom indicators, author based. That's it, Leon Wilson. He has an initial high.
Wilson.
Yeah. Wilson initial high. That's it. That's very similar to the Bollinger Band. The Donchian Channel breakout.
I've got two here, and I don't know which one we should look at.
They're fairly similar. They're both similar, right?
Next, price merge, style, green, wavy dots. Okay, let's put that on and see how that looks. So that's this row of dots here.
Yeah.
Let's make it thicker.
It's just waiting for a break above whatever parameter you choose.
So can you tell us a little bit about this indicator, the row of dots, and what it's telling us?
Well, it's telling us what the highest value was for that particular period that you selected.
Okay, and we chose.
So we're waiting
21.
Yeah, 21 days. So we're waiting for a new. The reason I sometimes use this is because we can scan for breaks of this indicator, just like we could scan for the breaks of the Donchian Channel.
Okay, so on a daily, so this is now daily. On a daily chart, if we were scanning for closing price above this value, then
all crosses over, yeah.
Yeah, then all the way back here it would have failed, but it would have picked it up here. On that big white candle. At about the time the moving average turned up, one day later, oh no, same day, because here it's not, the moving average is not rising. Here it is. Peter, what do you think about that?
It's just an indicator that I use occasionally to scan. I've got my own set of indicators that I use. And It would have picked up this trend at the same time as you mentioned it. Those 2 days on the daily chart.
Yeah.
That breakout that you mentioned, it's also shown by this indicator. And when you go to the weekly chart, you also see that large bullish bar that breaks out above this high. See that one down the bottom there, yeah.
Yep.
The volume's not quite big enough. Now, I'd just like to remind everybody that if you go back and you remember what was happening at this time with AGL, was the entry of the activist from Atlassian. I don't know, I've forgotten his name.
Oh, yeah, Mike Cannon
who bought 10% of the company and basically wanted to do whatever he wanted to do with it. So there was a lot of fundamental news about this company at that time. That was one of the reasons I did not trade this stock, because the future of AGL was totally uncertain.
Yes.
At that time.
That's a good comment. Yeah.
It's those sort of things that we tend to forget when we're looking at charts. the real world news at that time. I sometimes go back and say, why didn't I take that breakout? Well,
yes.
In this case, it was because of the activism of Mike Cannon-Brookes.
Yep.
Okay, that's it for me.
Peter, thank you for that. It's good to see another indicator on there and to see how that basically concurs with the others, and hear those comments about the news stories at the time.
I'd also like to agree with whoever suggested the weighting moving averages. They get in a little bit quicker than the EMAs. But generally only if it's a clean break. You can sometimes getting in a little bit too early. It can sometimes be a bit of a worry. But if it's a clean V reversal like this one was, the weighted moving averages will pick them up slightly quicker than the EMAs.
Okay. Yeah. David, your earlier comment, question about how early we might have picked this up on the chart and entered. Have we answered that question, or are you still pondering?
No, I think you've covered it pretty well, Robert. It's about where I think it was. Your synopsis of breaking the trend at the bottom was a fair comment, and also, as I say, I got in at just under $8 there, and I started off as a small trade, and then as was said that the news started to become more obvious, it started to rise, and I added to the position. But I'm out of that trade now. It's to me, it's run its course, so to speak.
It has.
Yeah. So no,
Robert,
that's good. Sorry,
Robert. There's one other classic technique that might be worth mentioning.
Yes, Peter.
If you could expand the time frame on this chart a little bit. So we want to go back to the previous. No, expand the time. Yeah. Well, that's it. Now we can draw a line from the highs in, say, May 22 across. It's a descending triangle, a descending trend line to that's it, across, and you'll find that it'll intersect around about exactly the same time as we've been talking about. No, not a horizontal line. It'll have to be you're
in a downtrend line.
Yes, a downtrend line from up there across to the other peak in that's it, December.
And I'm mindful that Phil's put a comment in the chat box that we'll come back to in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, across a little bit higher to the next peak. That's it. And straight across, and you'll find that it intersects with the area that we're talking about anyway.
Okay.
But that's a classic trend line analysis type that uses no indicators.
Yep. So that's across the top of those peaks, just above them.
Yep.
Let's tweak this. This one touches. When you said these peaks, I put a horizontal line on it, and notice that is almost $9. And while you were talking then, Peter, the thought I had was, like I've read in the classic textbooks, that people would have been buying this up in this earlier trend. They would have bidding it up, found for some reason it couldn't get above 9 and started to sell off, at which point the people who were buying in up here are in the $8, $8.50, nearly $9 time frame and price range. They might have been thinking, this is a loser. When the price gets back to here, I'm going to sell and get my money back. So up here, that could have explained some of this breakout, perhaps. Maybe this big white candle. People selling,
yes.
Not on extra high volume.
Place for resistance.
Yeah. So that's why I put that about there. Because I know that sort of psychology is reputed to be going through people's heads. Regular, should we say, mum and dad investors? People who don't follow technical analysis.
Institutionals do it as well.
Do they? That's interesting. Maybe that's because they don't think like technical analysts. and I've said this before, when I look at charts like this, I always ask myself, why has that happened? I know technical analysis says it will, but it has to be based on the opinions of the market participants that have caused that pattern or whatever to be locked into the chart. Okay, let's have a look at Phil's comment in the chat box. Phil, thanks for that. Phil has said, I scanned for the weekly 5 EMA. So let's go to a weekly chart. It is weekly. Let's temporarily hide some of what's on the chart here. Horizontal line, trend line. I'm using the layer manager to turn these things off. Now, Phil has said MA. 5 period EMA crossing. Oh, okay. What we should do is use moving average crossover. EMA, exponential 5 and 15.
Yep.
Price, measure, scale, and right. Yep. Okay. So, Phil, I think that's what you've said in the chat.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. I just use it as a filter for my. I use my daily. I'm a day trader. I use my daily go score, but I filter out all the stocks I'm interested in if they're trending, and that's the scan I use. And weakness creeps in when the 3 EMA starts moving downwards. So you can be cautious or you stop loss sometime that week. You put a 3 EMA in if you can.
Add a 3 EMA. Moving
just
average.
starts moving downwards.
3.
So there, that point there with the doji cross at the top there would be out. And then in again when it crosses over again. As a filter.
When the first week of 3 EMA starts moving down. Okay.
When the 3 EMA, so in when the 5 moves over the 15 and out when the 3 EMA starts moving down. I also like EMAs because they're very easy to calculate in Excel or anywhere really.
Yeah.
Much easier than weighted moving averages. And I don't know if it's a known fact that if you want to predict what the price must be the next day for the EMA to go down or up, it is the previous EMA. The price has to be the previous EMA. If it's below it, the EMA will go down. If it's above it, it will go up. So you can keep an eye out for those sort of triggers.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
3.
I discovered that about 5 years ago. I've never seen it mentioned anywhere else, but
I'm looking at that red one, the 3 period EMA.
yeah.
And if that dip is,
yes,
that's because, and that's 3 period, that's because within the last 3 periods, that bar's pulled it down. Yes.
Obviously, it wasn't the top, but it's if you just want to be cautious. It's, you know, that one at the right at the top up there where David got out. The 3 EMA dips down.
It does. Yep. Phil, thanks for that.
No worries, yeah.
And Peter Ferner said, interesting point, read previous EMA value. Yes.
Yeah. If you're using live data, of course, the live data will tell you, or even the delayed data, but it's very handy to have that figure. You can calculate that the day before, quite easy algebra. So keep an eye on it. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thanks, Phil. The conclusion from this discussion and those indicators seems to be if we had been using any of these and we missed this setup, then tough, bad luck. We should have picked it up. Let's have a look at RSI. That one comes to mind. That's interesting. So RSI just before that period was low, was less than 50. And then it started rising, crossed above 50, and was rising towards 70. Didn't get there, but it kept rising. I don't know if anyone uses RSI. What about MACD? I've got that up here somewhere. There it is. Standard MACD. Oh, no, that's interesting. Down here, MACD crossed above, below its own zero on that candle, that weekly candle. That's one of those things that I call a bullish observation. What's that look like on a daily chart? On a daily chart, the MACD crossed above, well below zero, well before it got to that point, while it was still in that consolidation period. An RSI, it crossed above 30 and was heading up towards 50 and higher. Make a mental note. I'm going to play with that later. Any other indicators people like using that we should look at?
Robert, what about the Guppy multiple moving average on this, on either a daily or a weekly?
Yep.
Can you put that on?
Yep, good question. I'll just hide some of these other things so it's not too cluttered. Guppy multiple moving average is one of these up here. There it is. So my interpretation of Guppy multiple moving average is that these 6 blue shorter term averages crossing up above the red is a bullish indication, but is not really so much of a trigger to indicate a healthy rising trend until we get a gap between them. And the reds have started to level out, which means that we might have been up here above $8 before we picked up that a good trend was getting underway. And unless we wanted to maybe take a little bit of a risk and look at it earlier. I don't know if some people use blues crossing reds as a trigger. David, have you got any thoughts?
Well, what I tend to do is I tend to fill in the gap between the blues and the reds, and that sort of gives me a bit of an indication. So what's that one there that you got your 15, is it?
We can't colour them, can we?
Well, you just put in a moving average that's 15, 30 or 12, whatever the...
Show tooltips.
I tend to use whole moving averages because you can modify them. You can put it on and you can change the, say, from 3 to 5 to 8 to 13, whatever. I just find it easier to use than guppies. It's the same principle.
It is.
Robert, there's a guppy ribbon as well.
Yeah, that's right. There is a...
You pop that in, you may find it gives you a much clearer indication.
Goes from bearish to bullish. That's interesting. Alec, thanks for that. That's a daily chart. Daily candles Daily guppy.
Change it to weekly. See if it's any different.
Change the chart to weekly. So the ribbon goes bullish in that week of the 3rd of April.
Now, I think that's probably about a week later than the daily.
Yes. Let's put a vertical line there and go back to daily. Yeah, a whole week later.
I think daily gives you a better look at it as it's progressing. If you go to the right of that chart and show that where it ends, you can see where you'll be getting out. Yeah, those two black candles were sort of, that was the start of it.
Yes.
Yeah, though the ribbon's not suggesting the bullish ends quite a long way further on.
Correct. Yes, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd be a long way down there.
Yep. So that ribbon might be good for entries, but not exits.
Oh. Go back to the left and see what happens in the previous case. There's your bullish. See, again, it seems to... See, the start of that bullish section looks pretty good, but the end seems a long way past where I think you'd like to get out.
Yes. Yeah, I've got no idea what the calculation says about the boundary between bullish and bearish in that ribbon.
Now, you'd have to look at the code for it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to try to interpret it. There's not much of it.
I looked at that a week or so ago when I was doing something else, and I was trying to figure out how that worked, because it sort of looks like you add the moving averages together.
Yes.
And therefore get like a common value or something. I wondered whether that actually makes sense or not.
Yeah, you're right. That is adding together all of the blue moving averages in value 1,
Yep.
and in value 2 it's all of the red ones, 30 to 60.
Yep.
And here it subtracts one from the other, and there's a
Yep.
test to see if it's greater than 0. It looks as though this might be better for the bearish change if some of these were dropped out of the calculation.
Yeah, you're possibly right. It might also depend on the steepness of the blue lines going up, because you can see where it works nicely at the start. The blue lines are quite steep, but where the blue lines are flatter, getting out, it seems to delay it. I don't know whether that is the reason, but just another observation.
Good observation, but I don't think that's the case. Wrong one. Ribbon. I don't think that's the case, because in the ribbon, there's no indication there that there's a slope calculated.
No, I agree. There's no slope, Robert, but I'm just wondering whether because you're adding all those moving averages together,
Yep.
I just wonder whether that might have the impact of, if it's rising rapidly, you get a quicker.
Yes. Okay.
Value 1 becomes greater than value 2.
Yeah.
More rapidly than at the other end, where it seems to take a while. I don't know. It'd be interesting to muck around with that formula and see what it actually does.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good exercise if someone wants some homework. I'm just making a note, but not for exit. That was useful. While we're doing this, I've still got all of these indicators on this chart. I've just hidden them using the layer manager. is there another stock that has recently rallied, something like AGL has, and we can have a look at the start of that one and see how those indicators performed. Don't say NVIDIA. I suppose we could, if someone knows the code. Otherwise, I'd have to go hunting for it. I'd have to pull it down off the Sydney server.
Robert, what about Fleet Partners, FPR?
FPR.
That may not be in the top 200, but it's certainly in the top 500.
They've got a colour change in their candles in April of this year.
Changed their name or something. I should know that. Right.
So that went from bearish to bullish. Where is my ellipse gone? Here it is. Bearish to bullish. Bollinger Bands. This is a daily chart. Maybe we should start off with a weekly. We're having a look in here. Turn off Bollinger Bands. Go to the weekly moving average. Which one is that one? That's the 34 EMA. Oh, that red one in there. Let's hide the Guppy multiple moving average. That's the 34 period EMA. Big white candle above. Go back to volume. Big volume spike on that big white weekly candle. And then there's a retracement back to about the middle of that candle body. That's interesting. NCM we can have a look at shortly. Donchian Channel. David, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I got in at about $2.30, and I've been following it up, and I'm still in that trade.
Okay.
About 280. Yeah, it did dip down to about 250, a bit under. Yeah, but I mean it's not an AGL, but it's quite useful.
Yep. RSI, MACD. Well, a few of them are saying about here somewhere could have been good. 34. I'm liking that 34-week EMA. Okay, a couple of other suggestions in the chat box. Peter has said NCM, Newcrest. Let's have a look at Newcrest. And there's a rally in there from about here to about there somewhere, 65% or whatever, 50, 60%. MACD, RSI. More often I look at RSI and MACD, the more I like them too. But this 34-week EMA is dipped and the price has crossed above it. It's looking bullish in there. Let's just put a circle around that. Yell out if I miss anything, anyone. Alex said try SIQ. RSI, same pattern. MACD, same. Oversold down here. There's that 34 period EMA. Big white candle there. How's the volume looking? Volume on that big white candle is not too high. But in this week of going ex-dividend, there was a little bit of a fall. Smart Group. Let's switch to daily. Daily. If anyone is running version BullCharts version 5.154. I don't think you've got this little toolbar that I've got down the bottom, DWM, QY, or this one on the left, 1D, 5D, 1M, 3M. I think they were implemented in 5.154, I think. Or might have been later, not sure. Went X, oh yes, fell on the ex-dividend date, and then fell for a few more days before it rallied again. Go back to weekly. Big volume in there in that week. Peter said FPR, not enough movement. That's the one we looked at a minute ago. Peter says SIQ looks good. Alex says also IAG. IAG, this is still a weekly. Not in the weekly. The 34 period EMA bottomed and turned up, bottom, turn up, bottom, turn up, bottom, turned up, and continued rising back in July, August last year. Had this big whoopsie here. What do we think about IAG? Anyone? Bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish. RSI.
Personally, I don't like insurance companies. Things change too quickly. What about airlines?
Yes. All it takes is a large storm and people don't like it. Some of those candles are quite tall, which makes me think that there's a lot of volatility. What does the average true range look like? What's that? Don't know what that is. Those dots are my average true range over 13 periods, 1.3 ATR multiples. Just pick a number. It's probably as good as a Bollinger Band. We've got Bollinger Bands here. Turn it on. Any other observations about IAG or comments, anyone? Look at the time. Time flies when you're having fun. I'm just going to have a look at the notes from last week's meeting. A couple of people said weighted moving average they have found useful. Whether to use it daily or weekly depends on your own strategy. Nobody mentioned monthly charts. Same tonight so far. No one's talked about monthly. And last week there was no consensus about which period to use, 14 period, 30 period, but someone said that an 8 period MA was useful. And we tried a 5 period MA down below. Is that that's in our scan? We also looked at charts based on Stan Weinstein's teachings, 30-week moving average on a weekly chart. Now that's very similar, very close to that red line, which is 34 period EMA. How to find stocks using a bull chart scan. That is the next slide. Take that away. After this slide, the last slide that I prepared here to help guide our discussion is, having had that big discussion, how do we create a bull chart scan to search for the trending conditions that we've talked about and defined? And we've talked about quite a few in there tonight. Should we try to write a scan to search for one of them? Go down to Scan Manager. There is actually one similar to what we want. There is one we found in the scan category called crossover that's called price and moving average. So if we go to this category crossover and look for price and moving average, That's the scan that we looked at last week in the Melbourne meeting. And it had us distracted for a minute because this second criteria simply says closing price of 5 bars ago is less than the 14 bar moving average of the close 5 bars ago. So that we want that condition, close price 5 bars ago less than the MA, and here we're looking for closes greater than the MA. So this is a scan that looks for price crossing above the MA within the last 5 bars. Anyway, we butchered that scan and changed some of the criteria. Maybe what I should do is write a new one. What are we going to look for? Let's look for this 34 period EMA turning upward. Scan name 34 EMA weekly turn up. That's just the comments, and I'll make sure it falls into my category. Let's make sure we look at weekly data, and we don't want to look at incomplete periods. Let's write a new criteria. Now, what do we want? We want the price above the 34 period MA. Is that okay? Price close is greater than indicator moving average 34 period MA. Close is greater than 34 simple MA of close.
Currently, the over the last 2 bars.
Is greater than.
Yeah. Greater than, yeah.
Every in the last 2?
Every, yep.
How's that one?
Yep.
Isn't it meant to be an EMA, not a simple?
Thank you, Lani. Very good. Yes. Well done. I did not do that on purpose just to see if everybody's listening, paying attention. I didn't. Let's apply that. Do we want to put in another criteria that says something like price, the MA is rising, or it doesn't matter?
No, the other thing I put in is turnover in the last 5 bars is what, $1 million over the last 5 bars.
Okay,
just
so you want
weed out some of the rubbish. Price
or chart field value traded is greater than 1 million. Every bar in the last 10.
No. Hang on, let me just have a look at that. Yeah, every of the last 5 bars. Greater than the
last 5. Okay.
Seems to work.
Now, don't forget, if this stock was in a trading halt yesterday, it would have been 0 value, so it won't be picked up. But we can live with that just for this exercise. Now, by default, I've got 674 securities in what I call my liquid list, and that's what I scan for. So I'm not going to scan the whole market. Shall we run that and see what happens? Life 360 is picked up. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just entered that one.
While it scans running, it's picking up a lot of A's. Let's have a look at this. There's the scan date. That's today. It's a weekly chart. That's this week. So this 34 period EMA is rising and prices above it at least 5 bars ago, at least within the last 5 bars. So if we had have ran that back here somewhere, let's stop this. The scan's finished. Is it? No, it's found 65. Let's stop the scan. We've found plenty. Have another look at
Robert, can I?
Yes, David?
Did you tick on that box there, incomplete period, so that it's taking up? I think if people scan for the week, they need to remember or should think about including incomplete periods so that they can pick it up a bit earlier. Anyway,
Yes.
you haven't done it today.
Yeah, David, valid comment. Yep.
I only ever run it on the weekend, so it's always complete periods.
Right, yeah.
Yes. And I'm assuming if we had to run this scan as at a date going back to about here somewhere, it would have picked this up on the breakout. If we were running this every week, week after week. That is every bar for the last 2 bars. You would have picked it up in here somewhere after that second big bar candle. And value traded greater than 1 million. Down here we're looking at volume. Let's have a look at value. Here's value. That's easily more than 1 million. Down here's 10 million. Even that little one is 7 million. So that passed that. So that would have been picked up. And there's so many stocks here. There's the next one, A4N. That jumped up in March. Adbri. Ordinate. Adriatic Metals. Australian Ethical Investment. That's interesting. Prices crossed above, but just recently. Australian Finance Group, AGL, Ampol, Aristocrat Leisure. Let's not go through all of them. There's too many there.
Yeah. To catch them sooner, could you just say these are the conditions I'm looking for, and this wasn't the condition the last period, so it's just happened. So you catch them early in the cycle, sort of thing.
Phil, I'm thinking if we were running this scan, this is based on weekly data, if we ran this every weekend and the criteria were not met a week ago, but they were met in the latest week, then it'd pick them up. So if we do that, what are you suggesting?
I use coding rather than the easy coding here. I just say this wasn't the situation in the last period, and suddenly it is the situation now. Only
okay.
select those. Get them early in the cycle.
Yep. So I think what you're saying is, in a case like 360, the condition was met back here, so we don't want to see it in the scan results this time. Is that right?
On the weekend, when you're running the scan, you want to see the latest candidates.
Yeah, the ones that have just triggered the criteria.
Yes.
So is there an easy way to add that sort of thing into this scan? Maybe one of them is to copy this scan. Copy.
Can you use the function has crossed?
Yeah.
In that first line?
Alec, I think that's one thing we could do. The other thing we could do is we could say that close is less than this.
Minus 1 bar ago, I don't know.
The close
of 3 bars back. 3 bars back, less than 34.
Close of 3 bars ago is less than 34.
Yeah.
Close of 3 bars ago is less than 34 EMA. So, Phil, I'm wondering if that would have the same effect of what you were suggesting.
Yeah, I can do it easily when I'm coding. I don't use the easy coding feature.
Okay, I couldn't do it easily by coding.
Yeah.
Okay. Robert, just while you've got that screen open, I'm interested. David's comment, I think, earlier about including incomplete periods.
Yes.
My understanding is, for example, if you do a weekly scan, say on a Wednesday night,
Mm-hmm.
and you mark include incomplete period,
Yes.
then my understanding is that that would treat the current week, even if it's only 3 days, as if it were a complete week.
Yes.
Whereas if you mark the other box, use rolling periods, it actually counts back 5 days from today and would therefore have equal number of days in each period that you're considering.
Yeah.
Is that what it does?
That is my understanding too. Yeah, so
Okay.
if we download today's data being Tuesday and run a scan as it at now, then my understanding is use rolling periods means it would look at last Wednesday to today as a week, and before that it would look at from the previous Wednesday to Tuesday as a week.
Yep, that's right. Yep, that's what I understood. I think I had that discussion with Brendan at some stage.
Yeah, that's my understanding too.
Okay.
Try that scan there and see if it cuts down the number of candidates.
Should we use rolling periods ticked?
No, with the close of 3 bars ago.
Yep.
Didn't meet the criteria, but now it does.
Okay. Yep. Run. So this table list here will be emptied. That's just the previous chart. We're waiting for some results. Have a look at the rejects. A lot of being rejected. 360 got rejected. Scan AMP. Argo. There's AMP. So that's recent. Say again.
It's just happening. The conditions are just being met.
Yes.
So you may get in at the beginning of a cycle. I don't know.
Yes. That looks nice.
Yeah, that looks right. Yep.
Don't forget, there's no advice here tonight, everyone. We'll come back in a month and revisit this and see if anyone made any. No, we won't. Deep yellow. Are they still a uranium miner like they were years ago?
Yeah.
There's an inverse head and shoulders.
Uranium's having a bit of a run at the moment.
Yes.
BOE, put BOE and you'll see it. It's another uranium stock that's having a bit of a run.
BOE.
Boss Energy, yeah.
Oh, yes. It won't be picked up in this scan.
No, it's probably...
Integral Diagnostics. Ingham's Group. Oh. Magellan Financial. Oh. That weekly EMA has just turned upwards. Red 5. Regal Invest. Select Harvest. SSR Mining. Symbio. Oh, interesting. TPG Telecom and Whitehaven Coal. That's the end of that one. Time's getting away. For anyone new to scans, hopefully you observed how we wrote the scan using some drop downs. And that's the end. What else did I put in the minutes of last week's meeting? Yeah, we tried running the scan as at Saturday, 12 August, a little earlier. First criteria share price closed today. 5 bars ago. New criteria. 2 MAs that someone in the crowd suggested. A 5-period SMA. That's what that is. 5-period SMA. Someone asked how to scan for a share price greater than the moving average. That's fairly straightforward in a scan. One thing we didn't talk about last week, but I thought I should put it in these notes in brackets, is that we should have talked about, but we didn't, the possibility of how to run a bull chart scan for a moving average crossover. And I should demonstrate that briefly. Let's close that scan. And I think there's going to be one already here. Crossover. MMA, guppy, mult, price movement. No, keep it simple. Let's create a new scan. If you wanted to search for something like a moving average crossover, then when you create the new criteria and get to this dialog box, you need to search for an indicator signal. Not price or chart field, not a number, not an indicator, not a fundamental, but for indicator signal. And then from this drop down, you can choose moving average crossover. And by default, this searches for a 12-period SMA and a 26-period MA. Is true any bar. So this is moving a crossover above is true. And if we just run that and have a quick look at the results, I think there'll be a few come out of this one. Could be wrong. Oh, we found one. Altium. Double click. So this faint dotted red line is our scan date. This is daily data, so it's run using today's end of day data. And it's looked at this here, where one moving average is crossed above the other. There's one below there, and the above there is actually labelled up here. It's interesting. Let's have another quick look. Scan criteria, moving average crossover. We did that from here, an indicator signal. And in this, once you choose the indicator signal, there are lots of other indicator signals that you can choose from. MACD, you can have a look at MACD, relative strength index, a whole lot of things. So it's possible. Won't save that. Then there were a whole lot of stocks we were watching last week from my weekly watch list table, and stocks going ex-dividend. I don't know if you're interested in stocks going ex-dividend. Let's go to my default chart. And go to watch lists, watching stocks going ex-dividend as of a while ago. So I've been doing this to consider what happens to the share price when a stock goes ex-dividend. And I've been watching this for a couple of years now. So here we can see Rio went ex-dividend on the 10th of August. It was already falling and fell further. Interesting. Australian Foundation, AFI, same. Big fall on the ex-dividend date. And that fall, at a guess, is more than the 14 cents of the dividend. So that's from $7.20 down to $7.05. It's close to 14 cents. Janus Henderson Group went ex. BKI went ex on the 11th of August. It's been trending lower. Suncorp Fell on the ex-dividend date, rallied a bit and fell some more. Commonwealth Bank fell. Did it fall $2.40? That's $1.04 down to sorry, 104 to 100. That's $4. Fell more than the dividend. Dicker Data didn't fall much at all. DB Insurance. Oh, Newcrest Mining. Oh, AMP. Oh, they're going X tomorrow. How far do you think they'll fall tomorrow? No, we're not going to make a book on this one.
Robert, looking at the charts you're showing there, you've got the actual value of the dividend.
Yeah.
I've been trying to find where I put that in from. Is it? Are you not? I'm on 5.1.98. Are you on a newer version? Are you?
No, I've edited the script and added it myself.
Ah, okay. Well, that's fine. I'll stop looking then.
Yeah, don't look for it.
No, I've been looking.
I've got the code in here.
Mm.
And it took me not being an expert in code, it took me a little while to work it out. I can share. I can share the
I just
indicator.
took a screen dump of it. I just took a screen dump.
So you got that? Good.
Yeah, thank you. That's excellent. That will help.
Yeah. As I've been watching this, I've kept looking at stocks that have fallen, and I've thought, okay, so it's fallen by this amount. We can have a look on the chart and measure it and calculate it, but how much was the dividend? So I added that in, both the value of the dividend and the percentage amount. Now we got down to AMP, got to AGL, going X tomorrow. Wonder if that'll fall tomorrow. Downer EDI, Baby Bunting. So all of these haven't gone X yet. A month ago, we were looking at all of these. That one's not useful, is it? It's gone. So what happened when these went ex-dividend? Back here. And the observations I made on these week after week and month after month made me draw the conclusion that what the experts have been telling us for years, that a stock will fall by the amount of the dividend on the ex-dividend date, is baloney. Blackmore's, BW, it's absolute rubbish. There's no consistency. So that didn't fall by the amount of the dividend, surely. 21 cents. Maybe it did. I measured lots of them. Anyway, we won't go through all those. It gets boring. That one didn't fall much. So last week we had a look at a whole lot of stocks. That's all we've got there. In general business last week, Andy talked to us about a movie called Dumb Money, due for release in October on 5th of August. And there is a trailer for it on YouTube. There's the link there in minutes. And it's an official YouTube official trailer, and I won't play it now. It goes for 3 minutes. But go and have a look at it because it's quite funny.
That's all on the GameStop. But
So that movie is all based on real life scenario, as I've got in notes here, is based on the stock GameStop. And this is the GameStop's share price performance back in 2021. Went from around under $10 up to $120 intra-week and then collapsed again. But that should be a good movie when it comes out. That's about all I've got for tonight. Happy to take questions or whatever.
Robert, just on that question previously, I think it might have been Leone on the dividends.
Yes.
In the list, there's a dividend vertical lines indicator.
Yes.
I think that gives you what you need. It gives an ex date, a paid date, and the amount of the dividend.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it doesn't display the dividend value for you though, and it doesn't.
It does. It does display the dividend value. I've just tried it.
Really?
I think it's a standard one, unless it's been altered. I can't tell whether it's a standard or not, but I've just tried it on a chart of PLS, and it's come up very nicely.
And it shows the
Well,
dividend.
I've got the,
Yeah,
I've got the. Oh well, I've got those the dividend date, ex-dividend and paid, and I never get the dividend amount.
Well, I suggest have a look at the styles and see. I think there's a box there that you, in styles, there's 3 boxes that need all to be ticked. Maybe the dividend amount box isn't ticked.
Alec, exactly what is the indicator name? I've got 4 or 5 here. And I know they're not all
dividend vertical lines.
X-date.
Yep.
X-date vertical line?
No, dividend vertical lines.
I don't have it.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's not a standard one. Maybe I've picked it up somewhere.
No, I've got it as well. It's in mine.
Oh, well, in that case, maybe is
up under dividend. Go
Got it mine.
D's. Go up to D's.
Oh, under D's.
Yeah, D for dividend.
Sorry, I was looking at X-dividend.
No, dividend vertical lines.
There you go.
There it is.
Ah, yes. Oh, great. Thank you.
Just have a look at styles, Robert, while you're there.
Yeah, I didn't have it. I mustn't have had it ticked. Dividend amount.
Yeah,
there
you've
it is.
got to have them all ticked. I found when I went into it, the dividend amount wasn't ticked.
Yep, that's what I had too.
I'll play with that and see if it's any different to the one that I've been using.
Yep.
I just noticed that you've got a percentage on yours, Robert, that is not SOC standard. So yeah, that's your coding.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Check dividend.
I think you can move the dividend amount around a bit too. I found sometimes the dividend amount clashes with the dividend date or the X date.
Yeah.
And I found if I moved it up, I think it gives you the option to put it above or below or whatever.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, in the styles box.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, if you just click on it, you get alignment.
That's it.
Position.
Dividend. Vertical lines.
You can change the font as well if you want to make it either more prominent or less prominent, whatever you want to do.
Dividend amount. Yes, yes, you're right. Position above, center below. Wonder how long that's been there for. There's one way to find out, dividend vertical lines. And this is how to find out if the stock indicator you're looking at is a custom one or a default one.
Yep.
Go to here and go to have to go to custom indicators. Doesn't really matter because we can get there anyway. Stop scrolling.
Yeah, it was up the top. There it is. Yeah.
Click on View Location. Close that box. Wait for Windows Explorer to start up. Where's Explorer? Here it is. Custom indicators or indicators. So that one, dividend vertical lines. There it is there, 2014 is the modified.
Yeah, so it's a standard.
So it's standard and it's been there for 10 years. There you go. Wonder why I went to the trouble of changing my own version. Custom indicators. I think mine's called X dividend date 20 X dividend alert. One of those, 2019. Goodness, was it that long ago? It's not dividend, it's X. Yeah, so to address the question, the indicator we're looking at, is it a supplied one or a custom one? It depends if it's in the custom indicators folder directory or the indicators directory. The indicators directory has in it 295 items. It says in the bottom left corner of my screen. There's 295 indicators there. If it's a custom indicator, if I've modified a standard indicator, then it gets saved in the custom indicators directory. Same name, and BullCharts uses that and not the custom one. And I've got a lot in there too. So that's how to find it. Tools, Preferences, Files tab, and scroll down until you get to custom indicators.
I've just got one thing to add. We've been talking a bit about Bollinger and also Guppy. I don't know if people know, but the ATAA conference, the Technical Analyst Conference, is on in Sydney, and both John Bollinger and Daryl Guppy are speaking, and they'll be there in person. So if anyone's interested in that, there's a stack of other speakers as well. But
they'll be in person, will they?
Yeah. Bollinger's in Indonesia and he's flying down from there. Yeah, and Daryl Guppy is actually talking about AI, and he's not done a talk on this before, so that'll be interesting.
Now, the ATA website has changed in the last few weeks. There's a new website, and you get directed to it. So if you type in ata.asn.au, you end up at, or ata.asn or .com, ASN, I think. You end up at the Club Express website, and there's the banner promotion for it. Click on the link, and there's information about the conference. Market Conquest, Techs and Tools for Success. Featured presenters, Grant Abbott, Stephen Bigelow, talking about candlestick power signals. John Bollinger, Gary Burton, who currently lives in Melbourne. Peter Castle, Alan Clement, Carly Garner, Mark Gleeson, Daryl Guppy. There's their website links in that right-hand column. Bisha Kudera will be there as well. Mike Smith from Perth. Brett Steenbarger. And the asterisk says remote presentation by video link. So Brett will be there not in person, but by video. Rudy Philippek, Van Dyke, and Matthew Verdau. There's the schedule. If there's nothing more, let's wrap up, end the session. The next one, the Melbourne session in September will be Tuesday the 19th. So our webinar will be 1 week later on the 26th of September. In the meantime, if there are any comments, questions, or feedback or anything, feel free to send them to me or ring me and have a chat. Either way. Some of the notes from tonight I will add into this minutes document, so that this document is a combination of what was discussed last week in Melbourne and also tonight. Then it's much more useful. All right, let's end the session there. I'll stop recording, so now you can say whatever you like and it won't be captured.